You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. Today is June 24th, 2024, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Monday?
Spencer, what is up? I'm here.
Hey. Yep.
I have not been incinerated by the sun. I have not been struck by lightning.
It's true. Yep, both those things are good.
So I'm here. I've now been back from vacay for like over a week, so I'm fully back into the routine, for better or for worse, which is good for WoW though, because it means WoW time this week. So I'm doing well. We have sort of a lighter overall news week. You know, there's so much stuff percolating right now, but nothing really bubbled up since the last time we spoke as much as maybe the last couple shows.
Well, shows. Ooh.
Man, we're like, I can't deal with how close pre-patch and War Within actually is. We're probably like less than a month out from pre-patch, basically,
sooner, I think.
As we speak right now today. And yeah, I mean, it's like right around the corner. It's almost too fast in a way. Not that I'm complaining. I'm ready and I'm excited, but like I don't know, man. It just feels like a runaway train right now. I'm not used to this cycle of having so much to do so consistently, you know. But here we are. It's just weird. Like I'm realizing, like, man, I got to start like actually paying attention to all the pre-expansion prep that I want to do, both on my account and like in my real life, right? So, you know, there's things I want to have in order before expansion comes out, because I know it's going to demand a lot of my time. And I sort of had this kind of mental clock that it would be like September, October, and I haven't adjusted to the fact that it isn't that. So, you know, that's that. I'm trying to shift into that here as we get into the summertime.
Yeah, no, I think we're probably, based off of, you know, one of the things we're going to chat about today is the PTR for the pre-patch. So I think we're probably 2 weeks out, maybe 3 weeks out from pre-patch at most, from seeing that drop. So I think we're going to have pre-patch very soon, and we'll be living in that new world, and we'll be counting down the weeks, as we already are, towards release, which means everyone has the clock that exists on all of the achievements that you want to get before they all go away. All of the rewards you want to earn that might be going away with different seasons ending and whatnot. So be sure you're, you know, checking things off your list and making your list, as you sort of said, so that you can actually check things off your list as you work your way through this content that's coming out and the content that's out right now, before that deadline hits and it all shifts into the new War Within that's going to be happening. So yeah, the other factor in this that I didn't talk as much about last week that I'll throw in here, because we're really just talking about live game this week, is Season of Discovery has its PTR that's happening for Season 4, but still doesn't have a release date for when that's actually coming out. And I feel like they are very much losing their window of time for which they can actually get people to pay attention to it. And it's getting really nervous. Like, because if you think about it, like, unless Season of Discovery launches Season 4 in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have pre-patch directly into War Within, and for the player base that shares between the two versions of the game, which I think a lot do. I know inside our raid team, the majority does. I think it'll be hard to motivate, particularly 20 people, for some of this content to give up time in the new World of Warcraft expansion in the live game to go and play Season of Discovery. And I think that is going to be quite the challenge for the team as these two dates get closer and closer together. So if we don't see Season of Discovery Season 4 until mid-July, I think that they have missed the entire mark on when this thing should have dropped to actually be able to capture an audience and have them experience a season before it's just too late. It's a weird time for that to happen, but I don't think a lot of players who play the modern game with War Within are going to feel like they have a lot of time that they want to dedicate to something outside of the modern game until like October, maybe. Like, it'll be a while.
Yeah, you could be right. I mean, like I agree that there's more crossover for SOD with retail than like other versions of Classic. I think there are
Yeah.
those dedicated like Classic players
For
who
sure.
SOD is part of the menu where retail isn't. It's a tough thing because like SOD has obviously had its struggles as it's gone on here this year, and I think it's really important that Phase 4 they hit it right, and having a longer PTR benefits them in getting it more right, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, timing is a concern. There's like so much to do around the product. I mean, just in games in general anymore. You know, the landscape is so different than it was when WoW was new. There's so much to play, and there's so many games that kind of demand your attention on a weekly basis at least. You know,
Right.
like so many service games that if you like WoW, you probably like other ones too. So it's that there's kind of that tension there between, all right, we want to deliver the best and coolest and most fun season 4 product we can, but we have this like very real timing concern of like we want to release it at a time where people can actually pay attention to it. That's got to be
Yeah.
really tough to manage.
Yeah, it's got to be very hard right now. So that's just been on my mind because we've sort of been doing the like, who's going to be rating at level 60 inside Season Discovery? Who's up for it? Who's not? You know, how much recruiting do we need to do, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, guys, depending on when they drop this thing, like you could see mass exodus from a lot of raid teams and not be around at all for Season Discovery, which only emphasizes more of the arguments I've been making about, hey, they need to put in better catch-up mechanics, they need to put in better systems to get players, you know, essentially into the end game and having a good time, and to a certain degree, raid logging, because they need to get to a point where players are like, yeah, you know what, I'm happy to log in for 2 hours or 3 hours once a week to do the Season Discovery content because that's really fun and I like staying up to date on it, but I don't want to feel like I need to spend 10 to 15 hours in there every week because I have all these other demands on my time that I want to spend. And a lot of that's going to come from Modern WoW, which is going to be a struggle for some of these teams. Anyways, setting Season of Discovery aside for the rest of the show, for those who don't really care about it, which, you know, there you go. We're done. It's over. Jason, what'd you get up to this past week in live WoW?
Oh man, I had my first week of like playing WoW for, you know, 3 of my scheduled nights in a few weeks here. So that was fun. It was a Mirdrasil week. We had like a pretty healthy turnout actually on Tuesday. So I said, you know what? We are going to, the goal here is going to be to blast Heroic down because I don't want to ask people to sit right now because they showed up, and I don't want to say, okay, sit down until maybe we kill some mythic bosses and then we get you in.
Right.
So we kind of just speed ran Mirdrasil. I mean, like we are so powered up and optimized now that, you know, it's just feeling really good. Stuff dies super fast. Managed to, you know, trim down the extra few people and step in and do Mythic first 3. So that was nice. You know, it gives people an extra vault choice, some better gear, some aspect crests and all that. The fights in there are pretty fun. I think Mirdrasil is probably like the easiest raid for us to do that stuff with. Maybe it's just because it's the latest one, so it's the most familiar. But you know, that was raiding was fine. That was the only Dragonflight raid that we did this week. Wednesday just didn't have enough interest in doing stuff in Dragonflight, so we just did MOP remakes and we did the full Heroic World Tour. Got a ton of bronze and stuff, and yeah, so that was good. We did it again last night. So, you know, it's really just stacking up. I ended up maxing out my item level. So all my stuff is fully upgraded. I bought out the vendor that sells the class arsenal and class armor that was the trading post items that are recolored.
Very nice.
I bought that for every class because why not? So that's done. I went and I ended up at 16 bones after Wednesday. So I went and managed to squeeze into a Garrosh only heroic ID on Thursday.
Wow.
And just got a cheeky little extra Garrosh kill in there. Got my 20 bones, got the Tusks of Manoroth.
Congratulations.
It's all over. Yes. Finally, forever. 11 years later, 2013 when Siege of Orgrimmar came out, like did the raid for a year and a half, never got them. Have not infrequently farmed the raid for them, never got them.
Yep.
Once this event's over, I never have to look at that fight again. I have the Iron Juggernaut mount. I got the mount like 4 or 5 times from doing Garrosh, but never the stupid shoulders, right? So that's really fun. Like it feels great to have them. And like I immediately logged into my Mag'har Orc Warrior who's in full heritage Mog and slapped the tusks on there. And man, that character looks so cool. It's like I gotta level this dude now because the look is just too killer. Like it looks so great. Yeah. So that was really fun. And so now like I'm working on the toy vendor. I got 2 toys left to buy, so that's about, I think it's like about 90K bronze total that I need to spend on that vendor. But then I have every toy that's on offer from that vendor, and then I'll be on to the next thing. I've been slacking a bit with remakes. Like I haven't been doing my loop every single day because I just don't really, I don't have the motivation now. I get the biggest of the biggest stuff done, and if I have time, then I'll hop in and do it. It's just so silly. We're those of us who have kind of taken this track, like we're just so powered up now. Like we did every heroic raid in Pandaria last night. We had a few people at 476. We were done in less than 2 hours flat.
Yeah.
Just the travel time alone, just like running through the raids, man. It's like it takes like no time at all. But I think we've been having fun with it. I hope. I mean, I have been. I enjoy doing it with the team and having just a bunch of people that are super maxed out and just pumping, and everything just blows up. I think it's a fun, chill way to hang out for a couple hours and get something tangible. You walk out with something that you wanted, unless one of our guys has bought literally everything. Like he's done, which I kind of fear for his health and sanity. But whatever. Hey, that's what he wanted to do. But he still shows up to help out with the clears and everything. So that's good.
Yeah, when you hit the point where you're able to essentially clear the mythic content all by yourself, then you're pretty much earning so much currency on a daily basis if you want to. That I could see you purchasing just everything at that point.
Yeah, he's just done. I mean, I don't know if I'll get to that point, but I don't. We still got quite a long time in remakes, and most of the stuff to buy is way cheaper than a round of item level upgrades. So, we'll see. I want to get the toy vendor done, then I'll move on to the mount vendor, and we'll go from there. And the other thing, I mean, I did get my keys in for the week. It was actually a pretty decent Keystone week. I got all 8 in, which was nice because I only had 1 done last week, so I'll have like a nice vault in case I get super lucky with something. I did a couple 10s, and then I was talking to the people I was running with, and everybody sort of agreed, like, we don't really need to do 10s for anything anymore, so we just started doing 8s just to round out the vault. I'm done with Aspect Crest, like I don't need them anymore, so I don't really care if I'm pulling a 519 versus a 522 out of the vault. There's no like effective discount there.
Right.
And man, 8s feel incredible. It's just like we're just running through 2 affixes, like whatever. We're plus 2ing and plus 3ing everything without even having to do anything weird with pulls or routing or whatever. It's just and it's so flexible because then you have keys you could downgrade or whatever and switch stuff around. I don't have any goals with pushing rating or anything for the season. I'm just having fun. So I'll probably just keep trying to fill up the vault with plus 8s, maybe get like a plus 10 or 2 for the week just to feel it out and to have like a high key to be able to mess around with the following week, to be able to re-roll it or whatever. But then just fill out with 8s. And who knows? Maybe I get that high roll belt that I'm looking for from the dungeon pool out of the vault some week or whatever, and then it feels good. But yeah, I mean, really starting to condense Dragonflight a bit because season 4 is just about done for me. Like my tune is pretty optimized at this point.
Yep.
The thing is now I have a big stable of alts that I want to make sure I get to 70 before War Within comes out, and that's going to be a bit of a balancing act. Talk about that, I guess, a little bit in relation to what's going on this week, but also looking ahead, to some other stuff. It's like I want to put the time in. I want to get these characters there. I want to be able to do delves with them or whatever.
Right.
But how do I assess that? Like, where does that time go? What's the best way to do it? And so I have some different thoughts about that we could get into as relates to other subjects.
Good. I mean, it's good to have some sort of idea or plan as to what you want to do. All right. I do want to dive into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft, though. So let's hop in right now to see what's going on there. All right, this week in World of Warcraft is the Mists of Pandaria Time Walking event. Go figure, with Mists all over the news. It's still happening even inside the live game. Characters level 35 and level 35 and up can access time walking versions of Gate of the Setting Sun, Temple of the Jade Serpent, Stormstout Brewery, Shadowpan Monastery, and Mogushan Palace, as well as Scholomance. And the Signs of Mists buff is up for reputation gains from combat and quests being increased by 50%. There's also dungeon drops dropping 467 eye level gear on the 1 of 8 adventurer track upgrades, as well as the vendor selling some 450 eye level gear. And there's a cache of normal awakened loot that waits for you if you complete 5 of these time walking dungeons for folks who are looking to get that stuff done. This week is the last hurrah for the Dragon Isles, meaning that the community feast is going on, as well as the participating in a hunt and laying siege to Dragonbane Keep. So be sure you're participating in those activities if you want to finish your last hurrah for the week. And the PvP brawl is cooking impossible, meaning that Nomi is back and being dangerous in the Valley of the Four Winds. This is one of Jason and I's favorites brawls because it's not only happening in a very beautiful place, but it's also a very cool brawl where 2 teams compete to try and get ingredients to Nomi to cook up the best meal possible as quickly as possible. And so both teams are running out into the fields and slaying yaks and gathering cabbages and all sorts of things to try and bring back to their pot for their team and dunking them into that pot to try and cook up the best meal. Meanwhile, the other team is also doing the same. And so you want to try and combat these other players to fight over ingredients, try and slow down the process of them getting ingredients back to their cooking stations, and in general, just be a nuisance to make sure that your team comes out with the best dish first. So it's a great little brawl. If you haven't tried it out before, I certainly recommend it. This is one of the top brawls I think that are out there. It's a lot of fun and certainly worth checking out.
Man, it is like just Pandaria time in World of Warcraft this
Apparently,
week. Like,
yep.
do you want to do time running or time walking or cooking impossible? It's all right there for you. Yeah, cooking impossible is super fun because you can like just be super annoying if that's in your kit. You know, I would play cooking impossible like I used to play like ETC and Heroes of the Storm. You know, all I want to do is just disrupt the other team and get on their nerves. And you can kind of do that and, you know, engage in cabbage warfare and keep the cabbages out of the pot. That's pretty good. And yeah, no time walking raid, unfortunately. We haven't gotten that yet. So dungeons only for your weekly. Good leveling opportunity though, man. And these are fast runs. As they're not as fast as in time running, but yeah, talk about leveling. Time walking and missed time walking is so fast too. So it's just funny, like you might get a little confused this week as to like what tune you're logged into and what you're supposed to be doing, because there's a lot of stuff bleeding across the line here between Remix and Dragonflight. I feel like it's just funny how it lined up.
Yep.
I can't believe it's cooking impossible time already. I was putting those together going, is this right? It feels like it just came around.
It does feel like it feels like it was like 3 weeks ago this happened.
Yeah, but it's a 12-week rotation, and I went and counted, and I went, yeah, I guess so. So, you know, we're just flying here, but there you go.
Time is definitely passing by quickly. We hit the summer months, and it always seems to just zip past during the summer months whenever we get there. But this also, since we have the Dragon Isles Community Feast thing going on with participating in a hunt and Dragonbane Keep for Last Hurrah, I believe Last Hurrah always lines up with world bosses. And so that means that we have Liskanoth the Future Bane as the Awakened for this week. The 499 level loot dropping off that. That's the Ice Proto Dragon in Thaldraszus, so be sure that you are heading out there to try and get that going on. And Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Fortified, Volcanic, and Spiteful, meaning that non-boss enemies have more health and deal increased damage. While in combat, enemies periodically cause gouts of flame to erupt beneath the feet of distant players, and fiends rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and pursue random players. Jason, is this the last week that we see Spiteful?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a 10-week rotation, right? I think Spiteful's in for 2 weeks. I think we probably end up seeing
one more Spiteful?
One more, maybe
one more.
two
Okay,
more.
so not the last hurrah of the spirits, but we're certainly close, man.
We are getting close.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spiteful, not anybody's favorite, I don't think. It's just so obnoxious. This is a great week to do 8. Wow. Fortified Volcanic, bring it on. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think it's still a pretty good week, you know? Spiteful is... I'll give it this much. I always got to try to find a silver lining here. It's a little bit less obnoxious in Dragonflight and in Dragonflight Season 4 specifically than it was in like Shadowlands, right? Shadowlands had a bunch of those dungeons where it's like, okay, you got to wait for all the ghosts to go away before the door opens or the taxi lets you take the thing, whatever. There's not as much of that in this pool, so that's a little bit better, but it's still annoying to play through. And with Fort, it's like stuff is going to die probably a little bit farther apart, which means you're going to have bigger like gaps with the Spitefuls coming out, which makes the whole thing just take longer. So definitely a bit of a slog. Volcanic's basically free though. You know, I mean, if you have to hard cast a lot, it does suck to have to reposition around a volcanic over and over again.
Yeah.
You could move up a little bit, you know. I don't know what the tolerance is there for the distance, but
Either way, like you said, if you're doing 8s, you're just dealing with fortified volcanic. Like this just sounds like a
yeah,
wonderful, wonderful week.
yeah, really nice
for
week
people
for
out
sure.
there. You know,
Yep.
if you're someone who isn't trying to push for unlocking an achievement, getting a certain amount of points that way, even if you're someone who's like, hey, I haven't really dabbled in Mythic Plus before, I'm not really sure about dipping my foot into it, this is a great week to dip your toe in. Because all you're basically dealing with, like, bosses will be bosses. They won't be super hard in the sense of they won't be doing increased damage, and you won't be on them as long because they won't have as much health. Trash is going to be heavier duty trash to sort of deal with, but you're dealing with volcanic, and that's it, which means you just got to watch your feet for the little gout of flame that's going to spurt up. It's not going to one-shot you. It's going to bump you into the air. So you might, not be able to move out of something, worst case scenario. But in general, like, this is a nice beginner's week for Mythic Plus. If you're someone who's like, yeah, I want to do like a 6 or an 8 or something like that, this is a great week for that.
Or like, hey, I got this alt sitting around that I really want to power up, but I haven't had a chance to get crests or whatever, what have you. Man, hit that queue and find some +8 Algathar academies or something, and just blast them. That's sort of my go-to, like, easy dungeon in this pool. I think it just seems to be the smoothest run at all of them, and yeah, I think it's a great week. My plan is basically to try to get maybe 1 or 2 10s in. Like I said, just keep that key at 10 so I have flexibility with it in case somebody needs something. Somebody's trying to unlock a last minute teleport or whatever. Or we drop it, and then we have some more flexibility with the rerolls. So I think it's a really good week. It's hard not to look ahead to new stuff right now. I think is the biggest thing. It's like, okay, we've done these dungeons of death. We've seen these half-fixed rotations for quite a while. We've been on the same rotations now for 3 seasons. Just kind of ready for a breath of fresh air with this stuff, but it is fun, in our 525 plus loadouts with everything optimized and all the abyss weapons and trinkets to just get in there and unload. It is pretty fun. So no matter what, at least you got that factor going on.
Exactly. All right. Midsummer Fire Festival is also happening. It's currently live through Friday, the 5th of July. So you've got a little bit of time here to explore and enjoy that couple of weeks. You either honor or extinguish bonfires throughout the world for burning blossoms, the currency that you use to exchange for things like the skywriting customization for Cliffside Wilderdrake armor, or the Midsummer Safeguard, or the Midsummer Mantle, and all sorts of other different fun toys and whatnot that are out there. But that new skywriting customization is certainly something that's going to be on a lot of people's lists. That's new this year, as well as the Safeguard and the Mantle of Midsummer. Those are all things that are brand new this year, so be sure you're trying to get those. Of course, you can still fight a Hoon and get yourself the Illusion for Death Frost, or you can get the Scythe or the Frigid Frostling Battle Pet, those sorts of things. There's obviously still all of the old helm and vestments and whatnot of the Fire Festival, and there's different pets for the Spirit of Summer, Blazing Cindercrawler, Igneous Flameling, as well as the toys for Brazier of Dancing Flames, which is still one of the more fun toys that are out there, as well as the Cozy Bonfire and the Fire Eater's Hearthstone, because all these systems have Hearthstones, so certainly worth checking that out and taking advantage of Midsummer Fire Festival while you can. There was a little update here on the loot system. They said, we're changing the way the loot system for the holiday boss drops work. We have increased drop rates significantly for the first boss kill on a single account. Only the first attempt on a single Battle.net account will be eligible to receive the item drop, however. For each subsequent daily attempt on the boss with a single Battle.net account, the chance for the item to drop will increase and continues to accumulate for each failed attempt. This change will allow players to spend less time working to earn specific dropped items while providing an increased opportunity to get that item during the holiday. In other words, if you're someone who's like, you know what, I got enough time to face a Hoon once. That's all I got. Once a day. That's it. Every day you'll have a higher chance of getting the thing that you wanted. So just keep that in mind. That's a nice little change they're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's huge because what it means is you only need enough time to do it once a day, because that's it. Like if that's all it's asking you to do at this point, which is incredible. Firefest I mean, it's one of the bigger holidays overall, I think, when you look at how long it runs and how much stuff is on offer.
Yep.
We did get a couple new cosmetics this year that are a little pricey. $350 each for the shield, and then there's like a version of it that attaches to your back, which is pretty cool. I ended up logging in Friday, and I did a Hoon, and I did the dailies in Stormwind, and then I did the dailies that send you all around to kill the different elementals, which they all reward like 10 blossoms a piece. They like up the yield last year or 2 years ago, I think. Which was nice because I did all that and got all the way caught up on all the stuff I had missed over the years, thankfully. So my bill was only 700 burning blossoms this year, right? And I'm looking at it going, okay, I have time here this afternoon to just go around to bonfires. And they added, last year they added bonfires in Dragon Isles. So I just went around and farmed out 700 blossoms on Friday, and I bought those 2 items, and I'm all caught up. So I haven't gotten the skywriting customization yet, but I've been doing my daily Ahoon. I think this is an incredibly significant quality of life change for holiday bosses.
I hope it's every holiday boss going forward. It's not just this one.
I mean, it is. Yeah, from the communication we've seen, and I mean the way they put it here, even. I guess my only question is, does it accumulate the streak protection like going forward? If I don't get it by the end of this event, do I start with very high streak protection next time? Because if so, like that's incredible. I think there's something to be said for like, oh, you have these like rare items that are hard to get, but like you really just want to reward people for participating in the holiday. You put the holiday in so that people will do it. You have these cute activities because you want to have people that matchmake with each other. The thing of like, oh, I have 50 tunes all queued up for Love is in the Air, and I'm going to get the rocket this year, or like nobody has fun with that. It's just it's just drain on you psychologically of like doing the same thing over and over again, as many times a day as you could stand and still failing because you're just rolling. I don't know what the drop chance is on it, a 1,000-sided die or something, and just hoping you get one particular number to come up. And it never gets any better. That's the way it's been for years on these kinds of things. And I think having this change and having this communication about it is fantastic. I mean, I guess ask me how I feel about it at the end of Firefest if I don't have my customization Drake armor. But I think it's way better to set the expectation like this and have the system work like this. Again, I mean, how much do we talk about like strides that they make in respecting players' time on the show? Like we talk about it all the time. This is huge. You just kill a Hoon once a day. That's what the game's asking you to do. And then, you will probably develop enough luck to get the thing that you want. And this also kind of ties into what I was talking about with leveling characters, because it's like you got Ribbon Dance. It's only 10%, which isn't a whole lot, but 10% is still more XP, and we don't have a lot of XP buffs in the game anymore. And so combine that too with time walking being up and fast time walking dungeon runs, and then you're getting bonus XP from killing the stuff inside the dungeons, and then you're getting the big extra bonus at the end of run. Firefest has traditionally been a good time for me to level alts over my WoW career, going back to when the game was new. But now it's like I feel like the leveling holidays are a bit de-emphasized, but I might try to take advantage of this if I can this week and start working on the shaman or something, and combo that buff with some time walking and see if I can make some progress. But overall, this is a cool holiday. I think the stuff on offer is nice. Like the toys, especially, are some of the coolest toys, like you kind of mentioned. I think they're some of the best holiday toys that we have. And it's like super grindable, right? Like if you're like, yo, it's Firefest day, I'm gonna get this thing. Especially with dragon riding in the old world, like you take a tune, you just go through every expansion, go backwards, start in Dragon Isles and get all those bonfires, and then go back to there weren't any in Shadowlands, but so then you go to the BFA zones and you get those, and you could do that on any tune basically that you have decently leveled enough to like fly, as long as you can. I guess you got to be like 60 so you get to the Dragon Isles and get those bonfires, but it goes so fast, man. And you just, they're all near towns and stuff, so you could even like take a flight path in AFK or whatever. But if you're dragon riding around, it's just, you just check them all off the list, stack up those blossoms, and go buy whatever you want. So it's cool. It doesn't have that much, like the daily quests are very lucrative, but the loop around to kill all the elementals does take a little while. If you don't want to deal with that daily gate of like, okay, this is how many burning blossoms I can expect to get from doing the daily quest loop. If you want to just break out of that cycle and grab a tune and go get bonfires, you could go get whatever you want off the vendor today. And that's not a lot of holidays work like that.
Yeah, there aren't very many that allow you to just go, hey, you know what, Saturday I have 5 hours to play. I just want to knock out all the Fire Festival stuff, and you can actually go and do that. There's very few that actually let you do that. Most of them are like, well, you did your 8 daily quests. Come back tomorrow. And I'm more and more with, in front of the show, Josh Lore. He he is very much a proponent of, I dislike daily quests. And I'm like, yeah, I actually genuinely dislike daily quests too. As a general format, just because I think pushing players to log in on a daily basis when not all players can, and those players get the largest reward, creates chores in a game as opposed to creating a fun play experience. And I think that it's better if they leaned harder into weekly rewards, allowing players to sort of choose the time when they're able to get into the game and accomplish those tasks, and not going, well, what's a weekly chore? Well, let's just take the 7 daily quests that they would do and mash them together, and that's not a weekly chore. No, don't do that. That is substantially too much content to do inside one play session. Trim it down, make it a weekly, and I think you'll see a lot more players enjoy their engagement with the game as opposed to feeling like they have to engage with the game. And I think that's really what they should be moving in the direction towards. So I like seeing events like this where it's basically, hey, you know what? You got time to play and you're in the right zone and you feel like doing it. Great. Here you go. Go ahead and grind this out and you can get all the rewards. So good to see. And yeah,
the flexibility is awesome. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's just giving people multiple options for how to approach something. Maybe you like having that set checklist. Like, okay, I just need to devote half an hour of the day. I do these same activities. And then I know at the end of it, it comes out at this much. Awesome. Like, being able to break out of that structure is also good. So the combo is great. And if you do both, man, you can get so many blossoms just on one tune. You could get caught very far. I mean, a lot of stuff is very expensive on the vendor, but still, I mean, you have a lot of ways to stack these up.
Yeah, you do. All right, notable hotfixes for the live game. Uldaman Legacy of Tyr, Emberon. They fixed an issue where Purging Flames precast visual effect was not matching the spawn location of the beam. Thank you. This is the same thing we complained about regularly.
They fixed it again, apparently. I have run into like people dying because the beam wasn't where they thought it looked like it was. Not since the first time they said they fixed it, but maybe I haven't done it that much since then. So maybe there's another problem with it. It's like Emberon just does not want to cooperate, is what we're learning.
Yeah, right. We're learning that they keep bashing his beam back into place and it keeps drifting, and we don't know why. So there's certainly something about that. Anyways, that's resolved again for folks that were worried about that. And as well as in Remix, Mists of Pandaria, the ensemble for Trail Seekers Laminar Armor White now grants the correct set. In case you were like, wait a minute, I bought this. Where is it? Where'd it go? And they fixed an issue causing Echo of Light from Holy Priest to scale incorrectly when there's a level disparity. And again, I wish when they said these things, they would say whether that's was a benefit or not a benefit. Was it scaling too good or scaling not good enough? I feel like these notes need context, please.
I can't speak to it. Because I haven't played Priest, although I'm pretty sure that this was scaling way too high. I think what they fixed here was where you queue into a dungeon and a level 20 Holy Priest would be out DPSing the entire rest of the party.
It could be
by a factor of like 10. So I mean, anymore, who can even tell what's happening in a time running dungeon? Like everything just explodes immediately. But I think that's my read on that, is that that's what they fixed. But I don't know how much it even matters at this point, because you're likely to have some pretty powerful tunes in any dungeon you queue into at this point, and stuff is gonna die pretty fast.
Very true. It will. It's just one of those concerns for me of like, I just like having the context so that when we're referencing it, if a player's gonna log in and be like, hey, I'm super excited about checking out my priest, and be like, oh, why does my priest now feel worse? What happened? What did they do? And not really be sure. And you're like, okay, well, this is why we need to have this sort of information and context when we're doing these sorts of things. All right. Let's see. Guild services are retiring. That's right. We will be retiring guild services currently available in the game shop as of July 22nd. at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Services that will be retired include Guild Realm Transfer, Guild Faction Transfers. After July 22nd, these services will no longer be available. The Guild Name Change service will continue to be available. Yeah, basically, hey, guilds are now cross-realm and cross-faction. There shouldn't be a reason why you need to change the faction of your guild. I do wonder if this is going to come along, or at least later they're going to add some sort of UI choice for whether or not your guild appears as, or whether or not guilds in general appear as a particular faction, or whether they're just guilds, as opposed to an alliance guild and a horde guild. Whether or not they just make that neutral would be an interesting choice to make. But yeah, it makes sense to me, and not offering the service anymore is, I mean, I guess logical, because it's just less confusing for players to be like, why do you have this feature when it's not important anymore?
Yeah, I have a couple. There's a couple things I read into this. Number one, I think the guild services retiring July 22nd at 10 a.m. PDT is relatively telling. That could indicate that the week of the 22nd, so the 23rd maintenance in NA might be pre-patch day, maintenance day.
That'd be
maybe
late.
not. Might
be
be
late.
Might be earlier. Might be late. Yeah. I mean, don't know. But I mean, my thought is here: they're shutting it off Monday the 22nd, right? And then so they're going to give it that window to shut it off, and then because it's all going to get blown up when they do the 11.0 changes. I mean, yeah, it's going to be a new landscape, and I have a feeling that they'll end up introducing some different guild services once this is all done. But the existing ones
group will travel. Have group will travel. No,
I'm not talking about guild perks. That would be.
I know. Let's get them back.
That's a whole other story. Yeah, guild perks would be nice, but I mean, I have a feeling
just
that
pay
they'll probably
$5 a month and you can have guild perks. No, it's just
if everybody in the guild chips in 5 cents, then
exactly, then you got it. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll probably end up having other kind of paid management services in the new guild ecosystem later on. It seems to, the way they word it sort of indicates that might be the case. But yeah, guilds are going to look a lot different after pre-patch comes in terms of how they work technically than they've looked ever before. Yes, your guild is like tethered to a particular realm. I'm sure that's mostly for like unique naming convention at this point, and the some other information tied to a realm. Toons can live on any realm and join a guild that lives on any realm. Toons of any faction can join any guild. Now there may be reasons why you want to transfer a guild to a different server even after these changes are made, but that might not be compatible with the way that these tools currently work, right? That's my thought, is that there's like a tech hurdle here where they're going to need to rebuild new paid services to work in the new landscape with guilds, and that's why these have to go. Because I mean, Blizzard's not going to say no if you want to give them money, right? Like, they want the money. So, if you could pay them money to change your guild, a home realm or whatever, I'm sure they would do it, but I'll bet you that the way this stuff is built won't work in the new, where we're going to land after pre-patch.
Could be.
But yeah, man, it's going to be really interesting to see the landscape with like server agnostic guilds, because it's going to open up, the ability for people to play in a structured environment with each other so much more. It's a shame it took this long. I've been asking for this for many years. Well, they have priorities. It wasn't like the highest priority in terms of their tech and whatever, but reducing barriers between players is, I think, one of the highest priorities that they should have at this point as the game continues to age. If you have somebody coming back after a long absence, like, it's entirely possible their friends moved away, and you want to be able to reconnect with them quickly. A new player might get funneled towards a new player realm, but then there's like a community that they want to join because they know people there, or a friend got them into it, or, anything like that. And not having that barrier of like, well, you unfortunately are now invested in a character that you made on the wrong realm, so now you have to pay money, and then you can, like, we don't have to worry about that anymore. I think that's huge. So there are some really good changes as a result of the new guild structure. But yeah, I mean, I guess like the like the disclaimer here is if you've been thinking that your guild should be on a different realm, you better do that in the next month. Like you're running out of time to make that change. So if that applies to you somehow, make sure to do it as soon as you can.
Yeah, I do wonder server structure wise how this is going to work and play out. Whether this means that like so high pop servers, right? Would it make sense now for some guilds to go, hey, I want to move off of a high pop server into a low pop server? Is that going to factor as much because you can now cross realm invite people to your guild? So you end up with, hey, yeah, these mega guilds or these really popular servers like Sargeras or Stormrage or whatever it is. Is it good for these teams to be like, hey, let's go find Bale Gun over here that's got nobody on it, move the whole guild over there, and essentially be like, yeah, this is fine because now we have cross realm guilds and whatever it is. Now, obviously, that still affects economy because I don't think we don't have cross realm auction houses at this point.
Well, you have cross region auction
houses, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not really the problem with the economy. Comes into the work order system,
Yeah,
because that's sort of the engine right now, and I think there's a little ambiguity. I can't tell you for sure how work orders are going to work in this post realm world. We haven't seen it in blue text,
right?
In a way that I can digest, because that would be, I guess, the biggest concern would be,
or moving somewhere where there aren't work orders anywhere. So
right, if we don't have cross realm work orders, then if you move to a low pop server, then that's going to really impact your ability to make gold off of work orders. Now we are getting NPC work orders and all that, so you should be able to at least participate in your profession, skill up, and get your medal, whatever the medal replacement's called, all that stuff. But yeah, there are some questions around that stuff, and yeah, I mean, it does, you might be able to offer people in your guild like a lower pop server experience if that's what they like, or a higher pop server experience if that's what they like, and say we recommend these realms or whatever. But yeah, the realm specific economy, there are little pieces of it that might still be carved out. So that's could be a bit of a
sticking point,
pitfall here. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, it's a curious question because I know, especially around expansion launches, you'd always have a very different experience over on Bailgun than I would have on Stormrage or on Sargeras, where I was like dealing with almost queue times and like super bad laggy experiences and crashes and server crashes, and you're like, dude, everything was smooth. We leveled up. It was great. There was no problem, no lag. Like wasn't competition for mobs. Like everything was fine. And you're like, wow, like what a different experience. And so whether or not there was consideration happening from these teams of like, hey, before this service goes away, do we want to move our entire guild to a lower pop realm so that we can take advantage going forward of being on a lower pop realm and have a less full server system? Or do we end up seeing more mergers taking place? I don't know with this. We might see them go, hey, you know what? Now that we've got War Within standing up on its back legs, let's actually get its front legs settled in and have, the server mergers take place in the first .5 patch. Who knows? Where they go, hey, yeah, Bailgun as well as these 3 other servers are now coming together to be one server, and we're going to start lowering our server structure to be able to see what they can sustain and save money on, because that's what business is all about.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that might be a stopgap. Like if they, I think, a region-wide work orders would be potentially a little fraught because weird stuff happens in work orders already. People ask for really weird stuff that no one should fill for them.
Yeah.
That would probably only get worse if you saw everything on an entire region.
Yeah.
So even though it would be a little bit weird to do like server merges at this point in the game where like individual server identity is not very important, that might be like a stopgap where it's like, okay, we can at least put together a whole bunch of low pop servers economies in the work order system to sort of fill in the gaps a little bit more versus doing region wide, which might just create a giant unusable mess. That could be. I mean, I'm sure there are going to be more changes around everything once these guild changes are in. It's they have a lot of options, a lot of different things they can look at and tweak, but it's not going to be like, well, here's 11.0, here's your realm agnostic guilds, have fun, see you later. We're never changing anything else with it anytime soon. Like I'm sure there will be plenty of other changes coming down, behind it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But yeah, that was certainly one of my questions as far as whether or not teams are going to take advantage of a move to a lower pop realm before all this takes place, and so much is now going cross realm overall. Okay, Warcraft short story, The Lilac and the Stone is out. Queen Regent Moira Thracian is exhausted. Her son, Dragon II, is rapidly coming of age and stands to inherit leadership of both the Dark Iron and the Bronzebeard clans. But Dagran is bookish and odd. Who describes someone as bookish and odd? Like, come on now. This is
well, when you see what Dagran Thorison's like,
apparently,
I think you'll go like,
no,
yeah, that's fair.
man.
Actually,
I don't know. He would easily choose the company of his library over leadership. I mean, let's just say he's an introvert. Okay, like it's fine to just call someone an introvert. There's nothing wrong with. I'm an introvert. There's nothing wrong with being an introvert. You don't have to call him bookish and odd. Oh my goodness. Anyways,
well, he just happens to be. It's not because of that. Like, he's
fine.
Dagran's got a lot going on. He's there's a lot of the circumstances of his existence in the game are one thing, and he's got a lot on his shoulders too. He's an interesting character. I'm actually really interested to see what they do with Dagran II, finally, after all these years, having a more prominent role in the actual game.
Well, they're not necessarily setting him up for success by describing him as bookish and odd. Anyways, can Moira inspire her son to take up his birthright, or will her fears for his future and the future of the clans prove true? And you can read this short story by Catherine M. Valente. If that's something you're looking to do, we got links inside the show notes for it, and you can read about just how bookish and odd Dagran is. All right. I'm looking forward to giving this one a read just because I'm curious about how they describe this character and what they're choosing to do with it.
Well, like, way back when in Vanilla WoW really is where you saw like Dagran Tharisan kidnaps Moira, right? He's like holding Moira hostage in Blackrock Mountain, but then Moira's actually like, wait, actually this isn't so bad. Like this Dagran guy, I actually like him. Like, I want this. Like,
I get it. Yep.
Maybe not. It's not even that. Like, it's like legitimately like, okay, like, I don't know. And so they have Dagran Jr. and then, obviously Dagran gets killed by adventurers in Blackrock Mountain. And, so Moira's like the Queen Regent, right? She's in line to succeed the throne in Ironforge. Dagran Tharisan was the emperor of the Bronzebeards or whatever his title was. So like, this is two of the three major dwarf clans like coming together, and Dagran's sort of the inheritor of all this. But this is a story that sort of played out in the game 20 years ago, and we haven't seen Dagran grow up really at all until now. But then you're introduced to him. I mean, this is a very minor spoiler, but you're introduced to him pretty early on in the questing in War Within. So we're gonna like see a lot of Dagran II in this expansion and stuff. So I think it's cool.
It might even be pre-patch when you're actually introduced to him. We might have pre-patch quests that involve him to a certain degree.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely going to be involved. He's going to be somebody you run into and meet, and we have a lot. Like, we've seen him in the game before when he was a child, but not very much. It's been a really long time since they pulled on this thread. So I think it's cool to revisit it. The dwarves don't get enough shine for my taste in the story overall. So I'm looking forward to it. I
agree. I'm also looking forward to it. I love that that's how they described a character. Anyways, new features coming in with War Within beta developments. For folks who are out there in War Within trying to figure it out, they just wanted to highlight that there's a known issue for warband conversion. You might get a pop-up that appears when you log in. However, the warband conversion is not yet implemented for beta characters. So this is just a pop-up that's happening. It's a known issue. You don't have to pay attention to that pop-up when it happens. Cross-realm guilds. The cross-realm guild functionality has been extended to allow for recruitment and management of guilds cross-realms. This is all War Within beta that they're doing this on, so keep that in mind. So you're able to actually do the cross-realm invite system. It exists now inside of the beta. Guild banks are currently restricted to realm, and the guild is located. The realm the guild is located on for initial testing. The guild bank functionality will be included in future beta release, so you'll actually be able to have the realm-based guild banks. To facilitate testing, they spun up an additional level-up realm, Turnip's Delight. I wonder who this refers to.
I don't know who could have possibly named this realm.
It's so strange.
It's a mystery we'll never solve.
I know, it's very strange. It has to be some sort of turnip lover of some kind. Anyways, so players can create guilds and invite members across multiple realms in their region. So that's a way to test that out for folks. Pet battles, they added a gossip to Quetzalcoatl, so the players can unlock 3 battle pets from War Within, as well as 3 ultimate pet battle training stones. They can test out the new pet battle system. So that's a great way to test that out. So certainly take advantage of that if that's something you're wanting to test. And then player versus player.
It's really cool that they did this. I saw this and I'm like, well, this is like, I mean, pet battles are not my thing, but I never even really thought about it. But yeah, having like an easy way on an NPC to just, okay, here, get some War Within pets and level them right up and go check out all the new pet battling.
Yeah.
I don't really remember them doing stuff like that before.
Never have. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I mean, feel free, somebody, if you're a big pet beta tester, let me know. But like, I feel like it's such a cool option. I feel like there is an audience for this somewhere. I know there are people who are into it, and like this makes it so much easier. Just jump in there and check out what the new pet battles are like and what they're doing.
Yeah, and test them and figure out what's wrong with them for sure. Player versus player rewards. The developers note, in conjunction with the Conquest Earned update, we wanted to provide some context to how players will earn their weapons. In 11.0, which is Season 1, players can earn a set of Conquest weapons suitable to their specialization without having to spend Conquest. Players can pick up the quest Weapons of Conquest, either by entering a rated PvP match or by going to Dorangal to speak with the Conquest Quartermaster Lalandi. This quest will task them with earning 2,500 Conquest, which is achievable by week 3 of the season. Players can then complete this quest by speaking with Lalandi. She will give you weapons, shields, and offhands appropriate for your specialization. After completing this quest, players will be able to use Conquest to purchase weapons from Lalandi as normal. So yes, that is how they are doing weapons. That's how weapons are going to happen. And to get a quest, you got to earn 2,500 Conquest, and then you just get weapons for free. And then you can purchase other weapons if you want to after that. So cool. Just clarification. Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, this ties into what we were talking about. Was it last week or recently about?
Was it last week, I think?
I think it was last week, yeah. Like PvP rewards are not going to be in the vault anymore. That row's being replaced by delves. PvP is going back to a more traditional Conquest vendor system, and accordingly, they're bumping up Conquest yield and caps. And yeah, so, you're going to have this baked in right away the first couple weeks of the season to earn X amount of Conquest, complete this quest, and then you get weapons. And then you're set with those slots for, at least for the early part of the season.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's really like a perfect delivery method for PvP gear and stuff they've tried in the past. It sort of always comes back to like players just want a vendor, and they don't really like having a vendor because there's not those moments of kind of surprise and like the fun spikes in power or whatever from having more of a random distribution system. Also, there's a meta around like which items you're supposed to buy first with your Conquest, and they don't like stuff like that either. But I think it just serves that player base so much better. So I think, having a thing like this where it's like, okay, like your weapons are mega important for most, in most situations. So you don't have to think about what should I spend. Should I spend my first Conquest on a weapon or something else? You can't even make that potential mistake, right? Like, here's your weapons, and now also, what else would you like from the Conquest vendor? So that's probably like, okay, the exciting, fun roller coaster curve of PvP gearing, it doesn't really serve that, but I don't think that's what a lot of people really want anyway. So I think this is probably okay, even if it's not the most exciting thing in the world. You're gonna have an idea of what you're getting into, right? You're gonna know what you want and when you're getting it, and I think that's probably fine for most of this audience.
Yeah, I did not enjoy the system. It was a while back that we had it, where you basically would finish a match of arena, and then you just would get a random item. It was just like a chance. That was not enjoyable, especially when you got the same item 2 or 3 times in a row, and you're like, okay, this is really irritating because I want boots. How do I get boots? I just need to be able to target boots. Let me target boots. How do I do this? Vendor. Done. Solved. Good. Thank you. That's what I want. So yes, I'm happy to see this come back. All right. War Within pre-expansion PTR development notes. That's right. The PTR is up for the pre-patch for War Within. So we've covered basically everything that's going to be in here, but we're just going to highlight so people are aware of what's available for testing. this is available for testing even if you haven't purchased War Within yet, right? You can download the PTR whenever you want. So you could actually go in and test this features if this is something you want to play around with to sort of like judge if this seems like it might be, to a certain degree, some of the expansion for you when we're getting to this pre-patch stuff. So just keep that in mind. War bands are going to be something that's being tested because it's going to come in with PTR. So when PTR comes in live, we are going to have war bands. So basically, your account will take several minutes to gather and convert all your characters on your first login. So just be aware the first time you log in for pre-patch is when we're going to have this like very slow builds up, grabs all your characters, all the stuff about them, et cetera, and builds your warband is going to happen on that first login during pre-patch, which makes the expansion launch much smoother, which makes me very happy because the expansion launch is going to be crazy enough as is. Let's get warbands out of the way now. All right. Skydiving is going to be coming in as well. So we're going to have the sky riding system. Basically, we're rolling out of dragon riding. It's no longer going to be a thing. And you're going to see hundreds of in-game mounts that actually are now able to be sky riding mounts. So that's going to happen right away. So keep that in mind. New human racial. That's right. The human racial, the no place like home racial that reduces the cooldown on your Hearthstone by 5 minutes, and you get an additional charge of your Hearthstone, and this replaces diplomacy, is happening with pre-patch. So that'll happen then. You can make your decisions as whether or not you want to move to being human or stay human or move away from or whatever it is that you're choosing to do based off of the racial change. I think it's pretty cool. So I'm glad to see that happening. That is going to be pre-patch content as well. The amount of loadouts for your talent system is being increased to 40 from 10. That's happening with pre-patch. Just in time for you to delete all of your old profiles that will no longer be relevant once we go into the new expansion, because you're going to have totally different talents and your system's going to be updated and whatever. A lot of those updates will come in too, but of course you want to be able to spend all of your talent points yet. So yeah, keep in mind that you're going to get those new loadouts so that players can actually take advantage of that. All the fear, silence, sleep, stun, and interrupt effect visuals are going to be updated with a new visual. In addition, all movement slowing effects greater than 50% will now display a universal slow visual on the target as well. What this means, from my understanding, is there's going to be large visual effects that happen over a character's head that show they are affected by something. Think about the laughing skull when someone's feared that goes above someone's head. There's going to be something along those lines. I love this idea, because not only does it make it easier when you're just running around in the game to see when someone's affected by something, but think about the PvP aspect. The amount of times that people have to use add-ons to be able to try and track when something's happened to one of their allies, because there's no visual way to tell other than the fact of, I think that guy's standing still. Is there like a little swirl over his head? I think he's sapped. I can't really tell as you're running through an arena and people are trying to kill you and there's a lot of stuff going on. It's very nice if they make these more emphasized, larger visuals. So I'm hoping that's what we're getting. Those are all going to be available in pre-patch as well, which is super exciting for me. I'll also say, as someone who occasionally watches WoW PvP, this will be very nice visuals for people watching the game, to be able to watch an arena match and go, hey, I can tell what's happening with that character a lot easier than being like, which one's the shaman? Let's look at the left side of the screen. Okay, he's stunned, and I think it's that guy there. Like, that's way easier to just throw a big icon over their head, which I think would be a nice thing to do. So I'm hoping that's what we're getting as far as that goes. Rated Battleground Blitz. That's right. The Rated Battleground Blitz is going to be enabled for queuing inside of the beta for this. So basically, once this kicks off and goes live, we're going to see that it's already enabled in beta for queuing. You're basically going to be able to do Rated Battleground Blitz in off season, I imagine is what this is going to look like once this goes live inside of pre-patch. In arenas, once all players have hit a lever, the arena will skip to 10 seconds remaining. That's right. When you queue in and you have the 1 minute timer and everyone's ready to go, you can just hit a lever inside of the room. Each player has a lever they hit, and that signifies that they're ready, and you can skip the wait time on getting in there. They're also to improve visuals, making it so that Shadow Sight, when you pick up the diamond, the Shadow Diamond inside of the arena, will now outline stealth characters with a red outline that can be seen through walls. Again, I think this will also help inside observing PvP situations, but in general, it makes it a lot easier to tell where someone who stealthed is, which is the entire purpose of that item. So I'm glad that they are making that happen, so that people who pick up the buff can see that easier. The spellbook is getting redesigned and moved to the same window as the talent and specializations. We've already talked about this, but this is where I was like, hey, it'd be nice if you could like dynamically shrink and make this bigger or move it around your screen. That would be a nice thing to be able to do in edit mode. Well, they are just letting us know that the new spellbook's going to come in, which is what you'd expect during the pre-patch period here. It also means that they're sort of reworking that little micro UI, the little micro UI you have that opens up things like your spellbook and whatnot, because they're merging obviously talents and the spellbook. So they're going to have a profession button on the micro menu now is going to be there. So just keep that in mind as well. There's the mount journal now has a button that's called switch flight style that lets you switch between steady flight, which is normal flight, and skywriting. So that's going to be a thing you can do. I will advocate that there needs to be a way to set mounts to a specific type of flying. If I want to have my druid form be normal flying, but my dragon that I hop on be skywriting, I should be able to choose to do that. If I want my flying carpet to be skywriting, but I want my helicopter to be normal flying, I should be able to choose to do that. That's what I want to see on a finite level, is you can literally right click on a mount and set its flying style. I want that to be a thing. So I imagine there's going to be an add-on that comes out very quickly that does this exact thing I'm saying, that basically, depending on which mount you summons, it switches that little button for you. But I want them to just build that into the game. I think it just makes sense to do, and that would be a really nice thing to have. So keep that in mind. Blizz, if you're listening, there's going to be options to replace spiders with alternate creatures. This is obviously already live inside of beta, but I wanted to highlight it here. This arachnophobia mode is coming in with pre-patch, which means that inside beta, all the spiders are replaced by crabs, which I think is hilarious and can make for some really fun experiences for players. So if that's something you're looking to explore, be sure you turn on your arachnophobia mode and get rid of all of the spiders. I really want to go back or during Time Walking Week maybe and do Firelands with arachnophobia mode on and see what happens with that giant crab that goes up into a web in the ceiling and comes down again. I think that would be hilarious.
It's just a crab spinning a big fire web. Yeah, I mean,
it's the fire crab. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that might be just as scary. I don't know.
It might. Who knows?
That sounds pretty scary to me. But yeah, I mean, that'll be, right there, day one of pre-patch. All that kind of stuff is in there. So the arachnophobia mode will be in before too much longer, probably.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. We also have updated they've also updated many of the map icons, including rare elite, cave entrances, teleporters, great vault, catalyst converter, dig sites, pet battles, what else? Dungeons and raids. Those have all been updated to have new world map icons. So they're all going to look different. So if you log in, you're like, I don't understand what all these icons are. That's because they changed them all. I'm sure mousing over them will still highlight what they actually are, so you can learn all of the new icons that have come in. Outside of that, the last thing I want to highlight is that the new camera system we talked about last week, where essentially you can become more collided with environment before pushing the camera forward behind the player, is going to be happening. There's going to be a console command for you to turn that on. That's camera indirect visibility space bracket 0,1 bracket. Is one of the things you can do, turn the feature on and off. I'm sure that will become a feature inside of the options menu at some point. For now, you have to go to the patch notes and grab the little string that you put into your console command to be able to turn that on and off, but that is also coming in as well for folks who want their camera to essentially collide more with the wall before being jammed up into the back of their character's head as far as their view goes. Okay, man, lots happening and lots coming in. Overall, I'm looking forward to pre-patch. I think this is the right stuff that they're working on and focusing on, because these are things that allow players to adapt, as well as the server structure to adapt to and get fixed before we get an expansion launch. So I think this is good to see.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, I think, is having the guild stuff and the warband stuff. Give it a month to bake before you have a huge wave. Obviously, people are going to come back and play pre-patch and all that. You're going to have traffic for sure. But it's a bit different than the expansion launch, right? I mean, early access will help with that a bit too, just to, kind of filter out the sweatiest people can get in there, myself included, early a couple days. And, it might, you have a kind of waves. I mean, all this stuff is sort of unpredictable once people start hitting the servers, but this is an ambitious pre-patch, man. This is maybe one of the biggest ones we've ever seen in terms of its impact on the game. Like, I think of like Legion, where you have a new class coming in. That was pretty big. Um, Especially at the time, they gave us like an extra couple weeks on that to do all that stuff. So yeah, warbands and warbands especially, and the guild stuff are just massive, massive changes for this expansion. Skywriting is too, but like we already have, worldwide dragon riding, so
Yep.
if skywriting breaks, it's like, okay, let me just get on my dragon or whatever. That probably works. I can't fly Mimiron's head or whatever, but I'll wait for that to get fixed. So
Some of those mounts are going to be really wild in skywriting, because it's just the shape of them and how they move is going to be very strange to see moving through the air like that as they sort of fly around. It's going to take some getting used to for some folks, I'm sure, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great system.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, all the stuff we have in right now sort of has like somewhat of a silhouette that sort of makes sense for what you're doing. Even the smaller ones like the birds and stuff, like it still kind of works. But there's some weird ones in the pool that are going to be available, which that might take a little getting your eyes used to it or whatever. But
I can't wait to break out my Ashes of Alar and start doing skywriting in Ashes of Alar, man. Like that trail that comes off of that thing is trail, so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an ambitious pre-patch. I mean, I don't have this in blue text, but also I believe with 11.0 they're bringing in significant XP requirement nerfs per level, especially from 60 to 70. Just massive XP nerfs, which should make leveling up to 70 to get ready for War Within borderline trivial.
Right.
We'll see if that goes live. I mean, that's the way it's been in the testing environment, and if that goes live, then it's going to be, oh man, I'm gonna have to try to scrape together whatever time I can in that window and get my tunes, leveled up and ready to go. Because I think about War Within is it's sort of a new era for playing alts in a way that feels meaningful. Like I have a character that I like, but I'm not good at playing it, and I don't want to inflict it on my friends.
Right.
But now I have something I can do that is fun, and I can scale up to a difficulty that feels appropriate for me, and I can play at my pace and get cool rewards from it. Like that seems perfect versus like, well, let me do these daily quests and public events. Like that isn't fun to me. But so I'm thinking like, okay, it's time to get the stable back into shape because this could be really fun. Maybe I don't end up doing it, but what I'm really not going to want to do is level after the expansion's out.
Yeah, for a little while. Yeah, there'll certainly be a little period of time after the expansion launches, maybe 3 months or so, where your interest is not going to be there on, I want to level a whole bunch of characters up. It's just, you're going to want it done ahead of time, or you're going to want to do it faster. So this is a great change that they're doing if that's coming in and going live. Okay. So let's get to an email that came in that we have not talked about for a couple weeks that I've wanted to, and we actually have time today, so I'm excited about it. This email came in from Tyler from Halifax, who says, hey guys, if you could remix any expansion, which would you pick, and how would you remix it in response to the WoW remix experiment and how it was crafted? Thanks, love the show, Tyler from Halifax. All right, Tyler. Man, okay, if we could remix any expansion. Well, I'm going to leave Legion for Jason because I feel like that's going to be his choice right off the bat.
You are incorrect.
I'm incorrect.
You get the big Family Feud X on that one.
So that's perfect. I am personally choosing BFA, and I'm choosing BFA because I just really love the environment of it. And I'd love to see it remixed, and I think they had a lot of systems in it that when remixed would work really well, including the Residium situation where you could basically just earn Residium constantly and buy gear. I think that system on its own was a really nice system to have in place, and they could easily either have a similar situation with Pandaria where gear is just dropping like crazy and you can essentially just have very nice pieces that are socketed and have all the effects on your character that affect them in different ways. Or you could have it where currency's dropping and you're just going to the Residium vendor and buying up all the gear that you want to buy with all the stats on it that you want. And you eliminate the issue of, hey, I got this really great piece, but it has speed as its primary thing. And this other one has haste. Why am I competing between speed and haste on a piece of gear? that shouldn't be a thing. You could easily have a situation like that get resolved that way, which I think could be really nice. It'd also make your trips to town feel a lot more significant because you actually go to town and go, hey, I've just earned like 100,000 residium. Let me buy 4 pieces of gear or upgrade 3 pieces of gear, whatever way you want to do it. I think that would be a neat way to sort of go about using that currency that way. I just, in general, that expansion to me just spoke to me so much on a storytelling level, on a environment level, on a different biome level. The biomes were great. I missed my penguin racing that you could do down the mountain, man. Like, there's so many things that were just really enjoyable about that expansion that I think it deserves another good shake when it comes to players getting a chance to play it and try it. And I think that a situation where it's remixed so that content is much easier to sort of plow through and get through is definitely something that could help out with that expansion. I also believe that the raids in there were very well done. I think that that was one of the few expansions where we had pretty good raid content across the board, and the things that were pain points for players during BFA inside raids would be substantially reduced by just making your characters overpowered. Because a lot of situations players ran into were checks. It was DPS checks or healing checks that were just struggle buses for raid teams. And so you're like, okay, well, we literally eliminate the hardest part about all this because all your characters are overpowered. So you don't have to worry about those checks. You don't have to worry about how hard a boss is when it comes to doing damage because people are going to be overpowered. They're just going to slaughter through that boss. And it's still going to be fun encounters. And there's a lot of story built into those raids. And I think it'd be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that could be a really fun one to see remixed.
Yeah, I mean that's a good call. BFA is such a weird one because I feel like it was so reviled, but history's been kind to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really
around
has.
here, like we were pretty pro BFA on the show for most of the duration of that expansion. I feel like when a lot of the community was turning hard against the game at that point, the creator community. And I didn't really quite understand why. I mean, BFA really spoke to a lot of my tastes as a player. I thought it was, 8.0 could have been better, but they started improving it like pretty fast. Azraid armor stunk. It just did.
Yeah.
And there's
the system of it wasn't good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way around that, but to me, that didn't negate everything that was good about the expansion.
Yeah.
My choice is a total curveball because what I think they should do if they do a remix type thing next is Warlords of Draenor.
Oh God, I was worried you were going to say that. What are you doing, man?
It's my least favorite expansion, but I feel like if you compress it into this limited time event, the dungeons are exceptionally strong. You have 3 really cool thematic raids with plenty of bosses. I think you have some potential that you could do some cool stuff with the Tanan jungle space specifically, for like end game activities and whatnot, and also for a thing like a remix where you're maybe having some new unique rewards and things of that nature. I think that's where you could actually sort of improve the garrison a little bit. You get like stuff to put in your garrison, which would be kind of fun if it was themed around the event or just like new assets. I mean, granted, they're not going to do a ton of new assets for any kind of remix situation, but we got some really cool stuff in MOP remix. And I think having some stuff for your garrison or having some cool Orc and Draenei themed new cosmetics that you could use, I think that stuff could really work well. There was like enough content that was cool in Warlords for like a 3-month window to be perfect, I think. There's some things with the remix concept overall that I think would be worth taking a second look at. First of all, I think you want to come in with sort of the yields that we're seeing right now, like start there. And if you want to buff them from there, cool, but don't start lower than like where we are right now in remix. That'd be one thing. I think, there could be some opportunity around, well, everything just drops this sort of hodgepodge of stuff. And, okay, if you do the higher difficulty content, then you get higher quality gear more easily. But the gear is just kind of this random stuff with different stats on it. And, you never get any cosmetic drops in terms of like toys or mounts from anything that you kill. maybe some of that could be looked at. But I think if you hit the ground running a little bit faster with another remix attempt, like that would be huge because you just feel better.
I mean, like the whole Tanan jungle thing to me was like, I feel like so few people experienced that content because they were so checked out by then.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That, like,
yeah, absolutely.
There is something to be said about getting people to actually have the opportunity to explore that sort of thing. I will still say it was not my favorite chunk of content. I found it very bland, one note. Everything was the same color. Everything, there was no different biome kind of space. Like, it just was that. And that bothered me about Tanan Jungle a lot for that final area. And it wasn't pretty, right? Like, at least like in Pandaria, we got like a pretty island as our, timeless isle kind of thing. Like, at least that existed. Tanan Jungle was genuinely kind of ugly, and it was supposed to be this like overgrown, corrupted, fell kind of space. And you're like, it's like living in, it wasn't as bad as the Maw, but it was like living in the Maw for a period of time.
It was kind
with
of
that content, right? So I
mean, overall, Warlords is like not my favorite aesthetic, and is a little bit more samey than, I mean, certainly something like BFA or even like Dragon Isles. We definitely got orc fatigue and stuff over the course of Warlords, but that's why I think like for something like a remix type situation is perfect, because you're only talking about a 3-month window or whatever. Also, like, there's just not as many zones compared to Pandaria, for example. So if you wanted to seed stuff in there for doing the quest lines and all that, and then you get unique rewards, kind of like what they did in MOP Remix, it's not as big of an ask for players to go through it because there's just straight up not as much of it, right? So, I think there's some opportunity there. I think, Remix overall is not what I kind of thought it would be. Not in a bad way necessarily, but now we're like a month in or whatever. It's just so absurd. There's no tether to like actual WoW gameplay anywhere. It's just complete wacky time. So I don't think Remix is really doing anything for like Pandaria's legacy. It's not making me reconsider anything about it at all, because it's like this mirror universe where nothing matters other than, just literally being in combat, because you've powered up so much from these passive sources, and it just happens. It's fun. I'm not saying it isn't fun, but what I'm saying is it's not really a way to revisit the actual content of an expansion, because it's not tethered to any of that. A good buddy of mine from Guild gave this anecdote the other day that he was like pugging a raid or something, and they kicked him out because he was doing too much damage and no one could learn the fights. And it's like, there is no fight learning in this mode. There's no strats. Like, you're in combat and the boss dies in 18 seconds and you go on to the next one. That's like an end state that you reach pretty fast, all things considered, right? Like, I've played consistently, but I'm at the point where my tune's maxed out in terms of item level. I have a pretty decent amount of threads for somebody who hasn't really been grinding. I missed an entire week of gameplay because I was on vacation, and I've been playing kind of sporadically since I got back. And like, we go into raids, heroic raids, and like, my tune is invincible. I'm doing millions of single target DPS in a tank spec. You know what I mean? There's no technique here. It's just about having fun. And so I think it's, I initially, we got this question from Tyler, like in the very early period of time, when Remix had just started. And I was thinking more along the lines of like, well, these remix type things are a way to really re-experience the content and maybe potentially even, reshape the reputation of content or whatever. I don't think it's that at all, because it's just not WoW. Like, it's not really playing WoW. It's this other thing. And so it's all about just having fun and just doing this wacky stuff and everything on the screen exploding, which is awesome. But yeah, I don't think revisiting BFA or Warlords would really change anybody's mind about any of it. But just as a funnel for like cool rewards, that's the best thing. Like, the new stuff that they added in MOP Remix is my favorite stuff to have collected from it.
Yeah.
And then having the opportunity to go back and get pretty much any cosmetic you want from the expansion, just from, collecting currency that you get everywhere. That's a cool feature. So, there's, I think there's opportunity with any era of the game, really, but it's just not, I guess, now that we've sort of crested the remix experience, right? For a lot of us, and all we're doing is just like farming stuff. There's minimal continued power gain. It's like, I'm not complaining about it, but it's just not what I thought it was going to be in terms of how it actually feels to play. So that sort of makes me feel differently about if they do another thing like this, like what does that really mean for us as players? My answer to that is maybe different than it would have been a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. We're definitely farther into it, so it is good to recognize that we are probably not feeling the same way as we did a month and a half ago. I mean, I know I'm feeling differently about it, just in them increasing the amount of currency that you earn and how fast you earn currency. That alone has changed a lot of my perspective on the whole thing. So it's good to recognize that we might be in a different headspace than we are right now. But yeah, I think BFA is going to be a lot of fun. I don't know if I'd ever touch Warlords, to be honest. The one thing, which is funny because it's the thing they didn't give us inside of Pandaria, that would make me want to touch Warlords is if they gave me the challenge mode weapons, but they're not going to. They give us challenge mode armors inside Pandaria Remix,
yeah.
so they're not going to give us the challenge mode weapons for Warlords, because those were really cool, man.
Yeah. Although, you know what? You bring up a good point, because I'm really glad they didn't do that. That they didn't put the challenge mode armors in here, because there would have been like almost no legitimate way to earn them, right? Like nothing would have felt good to do, like nothing comparable to what it was like to get them in Pandaria. So
yeah,
I think it's best to leave them out. Somebody was asking me, I forget who I was talking to. Somebody was like, "What if they did like Legion remix and they put like the Mage Tower stuff in there?" And I'm like, recolors, maybe like something unique to the mode, because like I mean, some of the Legion stuff had unique geometry on it or whatever, or physics, different flails or whatever. But do recolors that like clearly mark them as being from this other mode. Like it's cool to have limited time rewards. That's what was cool about Mage Tower in Legion. That's what's cool about Remix in terms of some of these unique rewards. So they got to be careful about stuff like that, because we're just not playing WoW. So if you have your cool, challenge mode armor set from doing Remix and just pushing Thunderclap and the whole screen dies, like that's a far cry from what it took to get that armor when it was in content. So I think the move is not to do that, but like maybe you could introduce it in a different way and do like a recolor, do something that makes it stand out from the original, just so people could have a silhouette. Well,
they existed, right? Like. So in Legion, you could get your class, your was it class or is it? I think it's class hall.
There was a class hall armor set.
So the class hall armor set was the armor set that was basically the watered down version of Mists of Pandaria challenge mode stuff. So if you're somebody who's like, dude, I've always wanted that really cool druid challenge mode armor, you can get a red reskin, which actually is kind of cool on its own, of that armor that, yes, doesn't have the same visual effects attached to it. You don't get like the crackling lightning when you're casting spells and stuff that happen with that armor. But it is the same armor. It's just recolored and reskinned to be something that players could get in Legion. So there are options to get those reskins and recolors. It's just they're not the same.
And they're missing some geometry and stuff too.
A little, like some of them are missing some geometry. Yeah.
Like they're definitely nice looking sets, but they don't have the same impact. So I think if they're going to offer that unique stuff in modes like this, like definitely it can't be. You have to easily separate it from the genuine article, because I think there's a big difference between the challenge modes and Mage Tower and what the game was asking you to do versus, hey, do whatever you want and then save up enough coins and then you buy this. So it's, it would be cool to revisit this stuff in a way, but there's no way to do it in context. And so that's the rub there. If they did something like that, I would be into it as long as it was clearly a significant recolor, but definitely can't do it. Can't just do it 1-to-1. Like here, have this thing that was like impossible to get back then for very little effort other than time and just doing whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay, with that, let's take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today I'm giving a shout out to Alianas, Arajian, James, Kapawi, Max, Pinky, Shorel, and Rager. Thank you so much for all that you give. It all goes back into the show. And thank you to all of our patrons who contribute and help out towards keeping the show on the air, the archives running, the technology in place to make sure this thing happens on a week-to-week basis. Thank you. So yes, we appreciate all of you. And a big shout out and thank you to our newest patron, Pugsley. Thank you so much. You found us over at patreon.com/the starting zone. That's where you can hop on and support the show over that patreon.com/the starting zone. So a big shout out to Pugsley. Thank you so much for hopping in and joining and supporting the show. Thank you so much, everyone. And we appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons, past and present. And thank you, Pugsley, for jumping in and contributing to the show. It means a lot, and it does help us keep the show on track, keeps the show in production, keeps the archives online. We wouldn't be able to do without you, literally. So thank you so much for contributing to what we do around here.
Yeah, thank you. All right. If you folks want to support the show another way, you can do that by going onto your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts, and leave us those 5-star reviews. They do boost us up those charts. They do help more people find our show, and they do bring a smile to our face when we get to read them here. This one comes in from Lushy Man, entitled "Easy to Digest WoW Info." Says, "Great show, guys. I am a newer listener to this show, and it has been perfect. It has been the perfect place to catch up on the weekly WoW news. As a more casual player nowadays, it is nice to be kept up to speed on what's happening in SOD and retail." Well, I'm glad to hear we have another season of Discovery and retail enjoyer. And thank you so much for taking the time to hop onto your iTunes or Apple Podcast and leave us those 5 stars. That means a lot to us, and it really does help us out. So I'm glad you're enjoying the show. I'm glad it's what you need, and you're getting your fix. And I have lots of exciting times ahead. And the only disappointing thing I got to say is that there's probably going to be some overlap between Season of Discovery and War Within. I don't see how they don't do it at this point. And we'll have to pick, we'll have to choose, man. There's too much. We have to choose.
Yeah. This is the first year that there's ever legitimately been too much WoW. But I think it's a good problem to have. So
yes.
Yeah. But yes, thank you. Thank you for writing in, Lushy Man or Lushy Man. I don't know, but I don't know how to say it. But thank you. Glad we could help you out and help you navigate what's going on around many versions of the game. And yeah, I mean, I guess the thing now is, how do we go back? You know, we can't just have like one version of the game ever again, or even 2 versions. Like we got to have. I guess you always have hardcore sitting there, so we'll always have at least 3 versions. But it's, you know, it has been. I've had to make like legitimate sort of choices. Like, okay, I don't have the room in my schedule to keep up with SOD. Like I just have to let it drop off because I can't. It's just not as much of a priority as the live game, and it's a good problem to have for WoW, I think, as a product. But it's just where I'm at in my life and everything. You know, I have what time I have, and it is weird to have to just like to have an element of the game that I'm interested in actively, but just straight up like can't devote any kind of time to. Like I've never been in that position before, but we've never had this many different options before either. Yeah,
it's a challenge at the moment, and I am certainly torn in many directions when it comes to what I want to be involved in, but I just feel like War Within is going to be my priority. That is what I've planned vacation time around. That is going to be my priority. So, man, all right.
Yeah, I mean, new expansion is always, you know, it's going to shoot to the top of the list because it's that big refresh. You know, everybody's starting from day one, from step one. Everybody's kind of figuring stuff out together, and then the expansion kind of takes on its identity, and then you decide, you know, your level of investment in it. And maybe that's high, maybe that's low, but at the outset, like everybody wants to jump in and see what's up with it. So like that is going to just kind of supersede anything else. If you have any kind of a toe in retail, like expansion launch is the biggest thing that ever happens, you know, even, I mean, since vanilla launch, that's, you know, the other biggest things are all the expansion launches. So they take up a lot of air, you know, and they take up a lot of players' time at the outset. And, you know, we've had expansions now, the last couple, that are competing with classic players' attention, but not this many different versions of classic and sort of different ways to play. So it's, you know, and it makes that decision a little bit tougher. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you are interested in retail, how does War Within launch not win out, at least not the first few weeks, right?
Completely agree. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up episode 637 of the Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter @thestartingzone or you can join our Discord server, thestartingzone.com/Discord, and have some conversations in there with us if you'd like. If you want to get your hands on some TSC gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. You can check out all the designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and all that kind of fun stuff. And Jason, where can folks find you if they're looking for you on the internet?
Best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. You can also find me over on Blue Sky. It's the username is just JLucas over there. So come say hi on either of those. The video channels are at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. They've been quiet. We'll probably continue to be quiet for a little while here, but I do want to start streaming again regularly. I just am not in the spot where I want to do that right now. But check the channels out. I gotta get some beta stuff going or whatever, like I barely even touched it. I just haven't had time. So might do some of that in the lead up. And then like once we get into, pre-patch and launch, then I think I'll be a bit more active over there. So come check out the video channels as well.
If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or over on Blue Sky at SpencerHD, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or on youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.